The following is a Claibs online production. Lunch with Claibs and Joe on claibsonline.com.
And welcome on in. It is Tuesday afternoon, and Claibs, we're together. We're here in person, back on the road. Now that you have a little bit of free time on your hands,
unexpected free time.
Are you going to say unexpected? I mean, it's an LCS weekend.
Yeah, but you know what? I kind of thought that we could pitch our way to the next round.
Okay.
And they pitched well for the most part. It was the offense that didn't come through, and that's why I'm sitting here talking to you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And the offense was a struggle. I don't know how much Cardinals we're going to get into. We are here at Munganess St. Louis Acura. Claibs, you were looking around at the Acura MDX beforehand. Your daughter just bought one?
Yeah, she has one, and I bought a couple of Acuras in my career. At least two. I think there was the third one somewhere along the way. Maybe my wife at the time might have been the other person. But these are great cars. I mean, when you think about what they've been able to do. And if you haven't been out here, folks, this store on Manchester, it's one of the most incredible facilities you'll ever see between here, the Lexus store, and they've been here for a while. The Munganess family's done an outstanding job continuing to provide great customer service and great selection, and they always have the best prices in town. And these Acuras, they're maybe, I wouldn't even call them underrated, because if you've ever been behind the wheel of one, you would realize that these things are right there with anybody else's vehicle on the road these days.
Yeah, you could lease an Acura here, or Hondas too. They do the leasing on Hondas out here at the Acura store. 13720 Manchester Road is where we are today, and then next month we'll probably be out at the Alton Munganess location, the Toyota store out there, hanging out with our buddy Jamie. Clayton not here today, but we talked to the big boss beforehand.
Yeah, we had a chance to visit with Kirk Munganess. It's been in his blood all his life, and what a great job they've done, as we talked about. And so we had a chance to visit with him, and business is good, but there's always room for a good deal that has your name on it.
So we get into so much to get into today. As I said, probably not much Cardinal talk, with them being a week into the offseason and not a whole lot to report. Have they even had their end of the year?
They've had their meetings. They've had their discussions.
They haven't had anything with the media.
No, they
yet.
haven't.
Yeah.
And, it's been kind of odd that we haven't, normally it's some sort of postmortem.
Mm-hmm.
I think they just want to back away from it for a minute, and plus Mo broke his ankle out in San Diego.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Stumbled on one of the dugout steps. So he's in a boot, and that's probably another reason why they just want to you know what, really?
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, well, it's happened. But,
they did a good job of keeping
the
that.
time of decompression is important. Well, think about it. None of the media has seen anybody.
Right.
And I don't know if you put out a release that Cardinal president broke his ankle.
Right.
So it's just one of those unfortunate things that I just think they just wanted to step away from it, because this was such a grind in so many ways.
Right. Just getting to the opening day, and then the restart, and then the other restart, and it was a stressful 2 months of baseball, 60 days of baseball for the Cardinals, not to mention everything that led up before that. We'll get into other injuries in the city of San Diego, plus we'll get into other ankle injuries later on in the show. But let's start off with Blues free agency. It is, baseball free agency right around the corner, but we're in hockey free agency now with the shift in all of the seasons, and the Blues were active. We knew that it was going to be a struggle to re-sign Alex Pietrangelo for what he wanted, and it turns out he goes to Vegas, 8 years, $75 million for the Blues former captain. The Blues walked away from the table before Petro did, as they went out on the first day of free agency, and they went out and got Torrey Krug from Boston.
Yeah, you know what? I don't blame him. Petro knew what the deal was they were going to offer him, okay? I mean, and I think it was pretty cut and dry, because everybody knew what their cap stats. And that's the one thing about this business. Now, you can look at a cap and see everybody has access to contract and structure, so it's not a situation where they're holding back. Now, could you have signed him? Yeah, but that would have meant you would have had to move some other important players, maybe. So it was what it was, and I don't think either side has anything to feel bad about. Blues put the offer on the table. I don't. I would hope Petro didn't think it was going to change because it was an offer that they couldn't move any money around.
Yeah.
I mean, even with moving Jake Allen, they didn't save themselves as much money as you would have thought. And you have other players you have to also sign. So, and then I know Petro, another start. I mean, hey, listen, Vegas is a great organization. You know, they went to the finals their first year. They've been competitive in the other 2 years. It's a great place to live. There's no state taxes. The weather's a little bit more consistently good than it is in St. Louis. And, you know, I don't have a problem with it. And I wish him nothing but the best. He did a great job as a captain and member of the Blues. I know some people will be disappointed he won't have a statue. I mean, they'll save that one. But anyway.
He won a cup. He was the captain of the team that won a cup, the first in franchise history.
Yeah, and I'm good with it.
Yeah, he has that to put on his career whenever it might end. And 8 years is a long time when you look.
I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, when you look at the end and you look at the fact that he wanted a no move clause, the Blues weren't going to give him a no move clause. And the Blues were just trying to protect themselves, and not in the first couple of years. They wanted to make sure they were protected down in 2027, 2028.
You know, it's almost like you didn't want a repeat of Alexander Steen.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't want a repeat of Matt Carpenter. I mean, we've seen what happens when guys on the back end of that contract, and you're still paying them, and you're not getting anything out of it. So I understand it completely. And Petro did a shorter deal, got the most he could, but they could afford it. They had more cap space. That's the other thing we have to take into account. The Blues were backed up to the cap. They saved as much money as they could for Petro. They got themselves another good player in Krug, and it's going to be a different look.
Yep.
Okay, it's going to be a different look, but it's still going to be a competitive look. And you hope that maybe there's some other people along the way that you might be able to find, or as John Mosaic would say, maybe some low-hanging fruit somewhere. Maybe a guy who was bought out in one of these other situations can come in. But then I also think they've got to let kids like Thomas, Costin, Cairo, we got to find out who they are and what they are. I mean, we've heard so much about them. So it's time for them to play because there's going to be minutes to be had. You're going to be, 7, maybe 8 deep defensemen?
And that's where I was going to. They went out last year. Justin Falk. They went and got him from Carolina. You lose Bouwmeester. You're not. He's probably very unlikely to come back. He hasn't announced any kind of retirement yet.
Well, I think it's already.
I think it's kind of assumed. But they went out and they got Falk. They were already they already had the players in place, and now they go out and they get Krug
down the stretch.
Yeah,
Scandella was a serviceable player. I just think what you're going to see is guys in this situation. Who's going to be that dynamic defenseman? Who's going to be the guy who you're going? And maybe it's Parayko. I mean, we've been waiting for him to take the next step. Maybe it's Vince Dunn. I mean, so I'm not overly concerned. I just think to give a 31-year-old player 8 years is a lot to ask in a salary cap driven sport. Remember, this is baseball. You say, well, it is what it is. There's no salary cap to worry about. We can still go out and get other players. If we have to eat the salary, we will, or split the salary, however you want to do it. But in hockey, man, it's a hard cap where there's not any wiggle room. So you're kind of stuck. So I get it.
Yeah, and they'll have to figure out what's going to happen with Tarasenko at the start of the season, which looks like it's going to be January 1st. He won't be ready by then.
No.
He won't be ready till February, March, whenever that time comes. So you're going to get some cap relief there with him being on the injured list to start the season. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. You go out and you get a guy like Krug who had history with the Blues, history with Robert Thomas.
Yeah.
The fact their little Twitter exchange happened now. Blues fans cannot be upset or hold anything against Torrey Krug. They won the cup. Krug didn't. Now it looks like there have been amends made, and if the players are fine with it,
you turn the page. I mean,
exactly.
It's more for fans and players. Players don't have time to fool around with such silliness. So
right.
They'll move on. They'll figure it out.
So anymore, I can't imagine there's going to be any other big moves that the Blues are going to make, whether it be trades or anything else. Right now, they're just probably going to sit tight.
I think they'll still look around. I mean, maybe they can trade some contracts somewhere. I think we need another goal scorer. Now, I like the addition of Kyle Clifford. In this age of, they don't call them enforcers anymore, but he does present
Fourth line.
a physical presence that the Blues didn't have. So I think it's a situation where the Western Conference is rough and tumble, man. If you look around, teams are starting to load up on those guys again, and the Blues better have somebody because you can't play on the honor system in the National Hockey League.
Right. So I have stuff for you here on Claibs Online. We move over to baseball now, ALS and NLS. And before we get into all of that, the past few weeks, it seems like every week we have another Hall of Famer passing away. And Joe Morgan passed away yesterday at the age of 77, the Hall of Fame Reds second baseman. And I know him as the one of the voices of Sunday Night Baseball as I was growing up, and I imagine that's probably where you ran into him a lot of times.
Yeah, I knew him from that element. I saw him as a player, but I wasn't in the business when he was playing, and he was a good player. When he was with Houston, he started with Houston. They made a trade for Tommy Helms, if I'm not mistaken. Went to Cincinnati. He went to Cincinnati. Helms went to Houston. And he was the final piece to the Big Red Machine. You know, when you think about bench, you had Tony Perez, maybe the best RBI guy I've ever seen. And it was Joe Morgan. You had Pete Rose and George Foster. You know, the last National League team to win back-to-back World Series. That was in the 70s.
Yeah.
He was a really good player. Frank Cusmano and I were talking about it earlier. While he really was not embracing analytics when he was a broadcaster, he's an analytic dream. If you look at his WAR and some of the other numbers, I mean, he was a very suitable guy, Hall of Famer for sure. And they were pretty good up the middle with he and Dave Concepcion. So sorely missed, but his health had been failing. I was with Ozzie Smith yesterday, and he said that, his health had been starting to fail. And, because he was living in Cincinnati as well, because he has a car dealership there. He has a couple other businesses. He was very successful off the field. So he will be missed. He was a great player, and about 6 Hall of Famers this year.
I was going to say, I had the list. It was Kaline Seaver, Brock Gibson, Morgan. So I'm missing
Whitey Ford.
Whitey Ford just passed. That's right. He just passed away a few days ago as well. So 6 Hall of Famers. And when you look back at the work that he did on Sunday Night Baseball, they haven't done a game in over 10 years, right? It's he and Joe Morgan and John Miller. It's been a long time. I mean, it had to have been over 10 years since they last did a game together.
You're right.
And ESPN is still trying to figure out how to replace that team. It shows you just how good they were, that they were the voice for so long. And as so far, I mean, nothing's sticking.
No, I kind of like – well, I really don't care. I'm not really a big fan of what they have now. I thought when Dan Shulman was part of it, I thought he created a really good presence. They're still searching for a player who kind of gets it. I mean, A-Rod, Stacey Obvious too much. Chipper Jones doesn't work for me. And they're both very young in these post careers. But I don't know what you look for now in a national guy. You want a storyteller, you want a guy that's going to beat you over the head with stats, or you're going to give a guy who can give you instances from the dugout as he saw it. You like a little bit of everything. I think that's one of the reasons why John Smoltz has been able to excel in the role that he's been able to do. And from the looks of things, Adam Wainwright could be on his way to a similar role in that regard.
And that's what you want to find. And it's the same where I think when you look for like a manager in a sport and everybody wants that Hall of Fame manager, but then when it comes down to it, the Hall of Fame manager doesn't know how to relate to guys that are just average. And I think in a broadcaster, you want that Hall of Fame name, but you want it to be somebody who also is a little entertaining too, where I think John Smoltz, the chemistry between Smoltz and Buck is good. Yeah. And then you have John Smoltz, the pitcher, who is who can tell you everything that he's seen on the field, kind of like a Tony Romo, where Romo sees everything playing out, and he can tell you what's about to happen. Plus, he has that chemistry with Jim Nantz. And that's where I think Adam Wainwright might fit in, to where Adam Wainwright, he knows when to be serious, he knows when to be entertaining, and he can point out what he sees happening on the field.
I think that, I was kind of a fan of the guys yesteryear when Euchre was doing it, and guys who weren't great players but paid attention. And that's one of the things you see with a lot of catchers who've been able to be good broadcasters, because they saw the game from in front of them. But, again, I think it's so subjective now on what you want in a broadcaster. You just kind of roll with, some people you're going to like, some people you won't. So, I just try to watch the game and I'll figure it out.
So right now, Tampa's up 2-0 over the Astros. Mm-hmm. And Randy Arozarena just continues to hit. What's going through your head when you see Arozarena delivering the way that he has?
Well, he hit everywhere.
Yeah,
he's ever been. He didn't get a legitimate look in St. Louis. He pinch ran. He maybe got in at bat here or there, but they never gave him the look that I think he deserved for a guy who hit everywhere he's ever been. I don't think what we're seeing now is a fluke. I think this is a guy that's certainly a major leaguer. And it was a tough deal to make because he didn't have to do it. Maybe Liberatore might turn out to be Steve Carlton. I don't know.
At this point, he's got to be Sandy Koufax by the way that Arozarena has been dealing in the postseason.
Small sample size. Teams, when they figure you out, they may change him up a little bit. But I think so far he's swinging a hot bat. And he's doing a nice job, but man, it's, you can't turn on TV without seeing a former Cardinal somewhere.
No, that's God. And Liberatore's a young kid. Is he 20? He's only 20, right? Or is he 21?
He might be 21.
And for him to see that, he's a young kid. He knows what's being said.
Yeah, but you know what? I had a chance to spend some time with him this winter, and he's a pretty bright and collected guy. Mm-hmm. I think he's just worried about trying to be a better pitcher. He's got good stuff from what I saw, but, he just needs innings. He needs to pitch.
Yeah.
He pitched in spring training, and the one thing I noticed, he was so good at the other levels, he never had to pitch out of trouble.
Right.
So he gets to the minors or gets to spring training. Now he's pitching against better hitters, and now he's trying to figure out how to get out of trouble. And then he started walking guys. And that was the difference in why he still needs to get work. But who knows? Give him 2 years. Who knows where he can be?
The NLS game 1 was last night. I didn't realize it. I thought they were going to give a day off somewhere on this. They're going straight through 7 days, 7 games for both series. So tonight is game 3 in the ALCS, game 2 in the NLCS. The Braves win 5-1 last night over the Dodgers, and then the Dodgers get another blow today as they have to scratch Clayton Kershaw from the rotation. Tony Gosselin is going to get the start. A rookie who has not pitched in 17 days gets the start. Game 2.
He's fresh. And one of the things about that, they don't have a lot of information on this guy. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if he get the ball down early, then he might be a handful. But when you see guys who had that much of a layoff, they keep the ball up and they get themselves in trouble. Pitch count gets up a little bit, and all of a sudden you're getting somebody else warmed up in the bullpen. So, I don't know how Dave Roberts' roster is set right now as far as his bullpen. He might be an opener.
They went with Dustin May. They put Dustin May in relief yesterday. Yeah. He pitched at 1 2/3. I was surprised by that.
But here's the thing:
if you knew that Kershaw, there was a chance that Kershaw was going to be scratched. I don't know why you go with May in game 1.
Well, but who knows? Maybe he woke up this morning.
Right.
And I think that's what you have to take into account. You always, as a manager, have one guy that you save for either as an opener or as an emergency starter. And I think that's what Dave Roberts had to do.
Cardinals, you saw that. We weren't sure if it was going to be Gomber or Ponce de Leon.
But, everybody likes this opener mentality and the approach of going through the order once if you can and then turn it over to the bullpen. The pros and cons of it, You know, you go through the order once, you face the best hitters,
Mhm.
then you turn it over to the pen, but now you turn it over to the pen when you may need them tomorrow. But I guess when
Right.
you're in postseason, you say today is tomorrow. You know, we got to figure out how to win today. We'll let tomorrow take care of itself.
Especially now that they're down 1-0. Every game, I mean, kind of becomes must win until they get that first one.
No, you're right. You're
and not
right.
having that day off this year too, where somebody like Dave Roberts, who has managed in the postseason how many years in a row, usually knows that every third day they have off. His mentality is going to be completely different because he has to go 7 straight.
Yeah, but you know, it's not much different than a regular season as far as the consecutive games. Problem is, as you said, you know, everything's magnified.
Mhm.
You know, the hardest game to win is the first one. So it'll be interesting to see what he does and just how rested his pitching staff is. I haven't followed the Dodgers enough to know who's hot and who isn't as far as his bullpen is concerned, but I guess we'll all find out together.
I tell you, Kenley Jensen is not been he has been a source of headaches for them this year. And by the way, if you missed the NLCS last night, it was the first game all season that allowed fans into the stadium. They're down in Arlington for the NLCS, and they had fans there in the stands. They'll have fans in the NLCS and in the World Series. Was it? I want to say it was around 11,000, maybe. They let in, and you could see
My cousin was at that game. I don't know how the hell he got in because he don't even live in Texas, and he's not even.
There were plenty of Dodger and Braves fans that were walking. At least people in Dodgers and Braves jerseys that were walking into the stadium last night, and you saw especially in the home runs that the first 10 rows or whatever of the outfield were roped off still, and it didn't start until after that.
Yeah, I'm gonna text him in a bit and find out how he got it.
I mean, with everything else going on in the state of Texas, in the Dallas area, that doesn't strike me as it would have been a hot ticket.
Well,
like if that game was in St. Louis, are Cardinal fans really wanting to go to that game if it doesn't have the Cardinals in it?
I think I can say this for virtually every sport. When your team is not in it, you walk away from it.
Yeah.
So I don't think you would have had a great interest in the game itself. Mm-hmm. So, you know, fans who would come. Now, maybe you get some fans from Atlanta that would drive over.
The drive from Atlanta, I believe Kershaw is from Dallas or from that area. So maybe by way of him, at least his town, there's a large contingency of Clayton Kershaw fans.
But see, I don't even know if that'd be enough.
Right.
I mean, you know, the whole health issue and concern would probably be something that most people would certainly think about. So I don't know where they're coming from. I'm going to find out, though, how that's going to work.
Yeah, and they've been able to, this is all sports. And, we'll get into some of the other ones. But Mizzou this weekend, they hosted LSU, a game that was supposed to be played down in Louisiana, but wasn't because of Hurricane Delta. So that game, they were able to just move it to Columbia, Missouri, and not have to worry about refunding tickets or any travel for fans or anybody else just outside of the players. And Mizzou ends up winning that game 45-41, gets an upset over LSU. I think it's very clear that LSU was very overrated to start the season. That's their second loss on the year.
Yeah, but see,
you lose 17 guys plus 5 first rounders.
Well, I think the other thing is COVID has struck them also. I mean, they were shorthanded. I understand they're LSU and they were nationally ranked. But they lost a lot of players. You're right, but they got a lot of good players who are ready to go. And that's the thing. But with everything getting pushed back, and you not having those soft non-conference games on your schedule where you can go out and beat the hell out of somebody and get these kids some reps, can't do it now. And I think that we're seeing. I think you're seeing it more on defense. If you look around the country, you pick a league, and I'm going to show you they're scoring points at a record pace. And that's because the defense isn't getting enough reps.
And everybody's turned into the Big 12.
Yeah, they're not. They don't get enough chances to really hit people and tackle, and it's starting to show. Now, if you're a fan, you're like, this is great, man. I'm scoring 30, 35 points a game. If you're a defensive coordinator, you're like telling the wife, don't go out and buy anything because I may not have a job. But when you look around, everybody's doing it. The good teams or giving up points as well. So
Alabama's given up a lot. I mean, when did you see an Alabama? I mean, when was the last time you saw an Alabama team that was into shootouts?
So UT and Alabama scored 100 points in that game, if I'm not mistaken. And you're right. That's the whole concept here of where we're headed with this. And I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad for the game. Teams in leagues, in my opinion, have to find ways to create fan interest because everybody's playing at the same time. So if I'm tired of watching a boring 3 yards in a cloud of dust game, I can switch over and watch baseball. Right. Or I could switch over, I could have watched hockey or basketball. Or I could go out shopping or doing something with my wife because of the fact I'm used to not seeing any games. So it's one of those deals where everybody better figure out a way to say, hey, we need to keep this guy in his seat. He can't come to the game, but we need to make sure he doesn't use the remote control and check out on it. So the best way you do it is you create offense. And I don't care what sport it is. Offense, offense, offense.
Mizzou has a bye week, an unscheduled bye week this week as Vanderbilt was only able to dress 56 players last week as their outbreak continued, and they weren't going to be able to dress the required 53 for their game this week. There were a bunch of rules in place that I don't that much as far as you have to have at least one quarterback that's healthy. You have to have at least, I think it's 6 offensive linemen, 4 defensive linemen that are all healthy to be able to play games. And Vanderbilt was not going to be able to meet the requirements for their game. So
it looks through water on that campfire quick.
Yeah.
They didn't even flinch about it. No, you're not playing this.
So now that means Vanderbilt, which is based in Nashville, Tennessee, that's the first SEC game that had to be postponed. The Titans, with their outbreak last week, that forced them to postpone last week and have an earlier bye and move their game this week with the Bills to tonight. We have Tuesday Night Football tonight. And then the MLS team from Nashville got basically kicked out of the bubble.
Everybody's partying too much on Broadway.
Sports teams in the city of Nashville are struggling a bit to contain COVID-19. So no Mizzou this week.
How about, though, tip of the cap to both the NBA and the NHL?
Yeah.
Pulling this off without one positive test.
And the way you had players, some had to leave and come back, and they were able to make sure that, they quarantined for the set amount of days. And the NBA having responsible employees that did leave the bubble and come back in, and no issues at all. To where you look at that, you see that, and you wonder what was the NFL thinking that they could pull it off the way they did, and why they couldn't at least go the first 8 weeks in a bubble in Texas or something and then move on from there.
I agree. You know what, they could have done a couple of different things. But they think they're the NFL.
Yeah.
And they thought they could pull this off. It's not going to work. I know there's some discussion about them extending the season a week to make sure they get all the games in.
18-week season, yeah.
Now, here's another challenge that you have. We're still in that period of network TV where reruns are still in play. What happens when November rolls around and the sweeps take place? And you now, as a network, you're committed to running programming.
Right.
But the NFL might still be the best programming item you have as far as ratings are concerned.
The game tonight's on CBS, right?
Yes.
So CBS is going to get a nice little Tuesday bump that they weren't expecting. On top of that, wasn't the second debate supposed to be tonight too?
No, tomorrow.
That was supposed to be tomorrow. I was going to say, because if that got bumped too, then the NFL was really sitting pretty for tonight's Bills and Titans game,
which is a good game.
That's both undefeated teams.
Yeah. Going back to recruiting fans, would it be beyond the NFL to have a Tuesday night game?
The way that the amount of
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday.
But then, think of how many teams. You already get teams that are mad that they have to play Sunday to Thursday. You can't bring that to the Players Association and say Tuesday to Sunday, because you already saw the Bills this week. The Bills game next on Sunday, I think against the Patriots. That game already got moved to Monday, so they wouldn't make the Bills play on Tuesday and then play on Sunday. So now they play Tuesday to Monday for that. So they're giving them an extra break.
You got to have a floating schedule. Kind of like what we see with NBC that has a pick of the litter, the final few weeks of the regular season. I'm just floating it out there. It might be too much football on TV, but we know that football moves the needle. And for sports leagues that are going to be looking to have the needle move, you better start thinking creatively because your old method, I don't think is going to be successful.
I think if anything, what this might allow happen is maybe we start getting those doubleheader Monday Night Football games.
That's a good idea.
I could see that happening as if they could figure out a way because this is coming from a first-year red zone watcher right now. Only getting 3 games in the afternoon on Sunday.
Yeah.
They need to figure out a way to balance that. There's no reason they shouldn't be able to have 5 and 5.
So you can have an East Coast game that starts at 6, and you come back at 9:15 and start your West Coast game.
Yeah. People stay up.
Yeah, I mean, it's the NFL. And I think the NFL is the only sport that gets that mulligan where people will tolerate staying up till midnight, 12:30 in the morning. Or
because of fantasy and gambling.
But here's what I think they have to do. They got to figure a way to pick up the pace of play. And I don't know how you do that because you cannot have a 3-hour and 40-minute game.
No.
You got to find a way to keep it close.
No. Did you happen to see the press release of all the changes that they had to make into the schedule because they canceled the Patriots Broncos game? I would not have wanted to be the schedule maker sitting there. I got through about 2 weeks of it and I just quit. I quit reading it.
Well, person do the schedule. Now it's a computer that does it. And I got to think the NFL's got to go the same route.
From what I remember, and this is when the schedule release comes out, they are able to put everything in because all the matchups in the NFL every year. You know who's playing who, and you pretty much know that a year out outside of the 4 games that you're going to play in, or I guess what place the other 2 games are that you don't know about. And then they look at it and they'll present it to Goodell or whoever else, and they will pick whichever 3. They get 3 options, and they will pick whichever one looks the best.
Right.
As far as primetime games here or there, and kind of looking at it.
Distribute them evenly, between Fox, CBS.
The Giants Cowboys game this week was on CBS.
Yes.
And I tweeted it. I did not get an answer as to why that game was on CBS.
Good point.
Yeah, because that should have been a Fox game, but I know in recent years because I know that there are games every year that Fox and CBS can say there's no way you're moving this game.
Right.
That's ours that NBC or Monday Night Football can't have.
Ratings wise.
The which one?
The Cowboy Giant game.
I bet. I mean, those are 2 big markets.
Yeah, it just shows America likes a train wreck too. Because that's what you were watching. 2 teams that were going no place.
And I wonder how many people tuned in after the Dak Prescott injury because I was not watching at the time. I look at my phone. I have a text from a friend that just says they might have to remove Dak's leg. And I saw that and I thought, I don't want to get on Twitter right now because I know what I'm about to see and I don't want to see it. And sure enough, the first thing that I saw was his ankle just hanging there like that. And that was a bad one.
Here's what even makes that more gruesome. In the NFL, you have to have your ankles wrapped anyway. So, just think if he didn't have some tape keeping it together. It was gruesome. I was going out. I was leaving. I think we were going to dinner. We were going somewhere. And when I saw it, my stomach turned. And just to see him, you're helpless. You look at him. And to see Jason Garrett come out on the field, who coached him,
right?
And to see guys that look they had in their face like, damn.
Whenever you see a defender immediately start calling over for somebody, that's when you know it's bad.
Yeah, I was going.
Which means he probably with an ankle injury, that means he hurt something.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing. And the severity, I think, was measured by the fact he had surgery that night. Normally, in those situations, they'll let the swelling go down a little bit. No, we need to do this now. So I would think they put some pins in and the other things that could stabilize it. But he's 4 to 6 months out.
Yeah. And it's so ironic that happened the same day, within an hour of Alex Smith making his first start after 650 days. I think it was well over. I mean, it was over 2 years since Alex Smith last played as an NFL game. And he comes back in for the first time and seeing, I don't know if you watched any of that, but they showed his wife was in the crowd.
I saw his family sitting
there, and his wife is sitting there, and he has 3 young kids who, to them, dad's out there playing football. You know, it's something they've never remembered seeing before, and they talked about Alex Smith, how that was important to him for his sons to watch him play football at some point in their lives. And you just see his kids dancing around, watching dad out there.
How many surgeries did he have? Was it 17 surgeries?
I didn't hear the number, but I know.
Wait a minute, that might have been Brian. I was playing golf with Brian Cox yesterday. I said, how many? Maybe it was him that had 17 in his career. It's a hard way to make a living.
Western Illinois Hall of Famer Brian Cox.
Yeah, and that's why the players, in my opinion, do themselves a disservice by not making sure in the CBA that their contracts are guaranteed.
Well, you were at Ozzy's golf tournament, right?
Yeah.
Which where was he? Where was that at?
St. Albans.
How'd you shoot?
I was okay early. Had the wind to my back. You know what? I was okay. I wasn't great, but I played worse in tournaments like that. But we had a good time. I was playing with Cox and Bernard Gilkey, and 2 wonderful people. I mean, not because they were players, but just people.
Mm-hmm.
And you want me a person that's more concerned about things than Brian Cox. I mean, one of my favorite people, period, whether he's playing football or not. And now he's got a kid playing in the NFL, and that's been interesting for him to watch. Hasn't worked since he got fired after the Super Bowl. I think he'll be back in the game. Didn't know he knows what he's doing, so I think you'll see him back.
Let's hear some other names that an Ozzie Smith golf tournament brings out.
Well,
because I know there'll be a lot of
this
Cardinals.
Year you didn't have as many because of COVID
and
travel, so everything was local. Tom Lawless, Al Rabowski, guys like that. It wasn't a star-studded event like it's been in the past, where it's a Julius Erving or Reggie Jackson. Cal Ripken's been there. I mean, he brings in some pretty good ones.
Right.
And I think next year, we're beyond COVID, you'll see some people. Because, you think about Ozzie's the elder statesman Hall of Famer in St. Louis now. I mean, Whitey.
Yeah.
But, as far as players are concerned, and, when you lose 6 guys, all of a sudden you move up the big chain as far as the Hall of Fame is concerned. Because at one point, Red Shanings was the oldest living Hall of Famer, or second oldest before he died. And there's a real status that comes with that. A, that you're a survivor, and B, you're kind of like the ambassador for the sport. And that's important. I know Ozzie takes it serious as far as his responsibility. But it's tough, man. And to see guys that you admired as players, and then them as a Hall of Famer, and when they start to go, you start looking around, wondering if you're next.
Yeah, that's before we wrap things up. We talked about the NBA bubble, but that did close out this past week. Sunday night, the Lakers defeat the Heat in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. LeBron wins his 4th ring in his career. Can you put an asterisk on this? I mean, everybody was in the bubble. Everybody was in the bubble. Everybody had 5 months off.
Yeah, no, I don't put an asterisk on this. I think this is harder than the regular season. Now, the only thing that you trade off travel for confinement, okay? That's the only difference. And I think the confinement was more of a challenge than the travel rules. I mean, the food is different. You're in the same environment. Mike Pence is.
I was just about to say that we got a Mike Pence situation here. If you see us swatting away something,
but no, I think this was hard, man. I think in the NHL, I think when you get out of your routine and the isolation, and I'm sure we're going to hear players talk more about that. I really commend them and what they're able to do. So I don't put an asterisk by this one. I might circle this one and say this was the hardest one to win. And I'd be interested to,
because that's the thing. Some guys just gave up. Yeah. I mean, some guys would get down 3 games to none, 3 games to 1, and they would just say whatever. Instead of going back to maybe their home city and having the energy there and wanting to keep going.
And then we saw what guys needed fan motivation. I just really. Yeah, man, I think this was a special. And with all the other things going on, from the social injustices that are taking place in the country, and guys rallying and making a statement, utilizing their voice. Man, this is something. And the league leadership, whether it's Gary Bettman or Adam Silver.
God. Oh my God. He still owes me money for Blues. He was saying that they are not going to get a playoff. And, you know.
That's a long time. But you know what? The interest with the interest on that, you know what?
You lost a lot of weight.
I did. But the interest that I may have owed you on it, I got to remember the whole bet. I could probably come in and buy a car.
Bullshit. You're a pretty good bullshit. I've been here that long and lived that long, but I don't buy with you. I know you way too long. Just talk to Mozilla. Get rid of that son of a bitch.
Okay, I'll speak to him about it.
I mean, if you haven't, I don't know anything about baseball.
But you do know that,
No,
right?
no, but just think this way, dude. I'm watching this playoffs. San Diego is thankful that we give him some kind of hitter, you know, that he's got a performance of his life. Tampa is thankful that got from St. Louis some hitter that is shining. New York Yankees got that Voit or whatever.
The voice, yeah.
You know, everyone is thankful, St. Louis, that they got hitters, and we go and shop for the hitters.
They're going to shop for him this year.
You know, you follow me? This is fucking stupid. I mean, we're giving away all the guys, and I don't know anything about it. And
But you know that, though. That's
what, dude, I don't know. Where's the sense in this shit? So
I agree.
Who do we have up there that cannot develop guys any farther, or hitting coach, or whatever? What the fuck is wrong with this?
Jasek here at St. Louis Acura, Munganess St. Louis Acura. Come on up here. Hey, you come up here, you buy a car from him, you can talk sports with him too.
Baseball with
Yeah,
you.
he'll talk baseball. Bets with you too. The Claibs still owes him money for.
That's
So-
how long ago it was. I think I was one year. I said they're not making the playoffs. They got in on the last day. Only him. Only Jason can remember this.
Oh, we are as we wrap things up here from Munganess St. Louis Acura. I also want to thank
You
our
couldn't get
sponsors.
that kind of performance anywhere else on any podcast.
No, right here, Claibs Online. Also, financed by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. It was his birthday yesterday, Ryan Kelly. I think it was either yesterday or Sunday was the
we're
home
gonna
loan
have him
expert's
on next
birthday.
week.
Yeah, he just finished the Climb for Kids, and what interest rates is it below 2 now?
It's pretty close.
Yeah,
Pretty close. It's a good time to look into it. And I always tell people, if you're thinking about it, why don't you get pre-approved? Doesn't take much to get pre-approved. And once you do, now you know what you can actually go out and buy compared to sticker shock when you go places and you think this is a beautiful home, and then all of a sudden you find out you can't afford it. So go get pre-approved, and they can make it work for you. They can work with you and get you squared away and put you in the right position for your future, because other than your family, buying a home is the most important and biggest investment you're ever going to make. So why not start it off right with the home loan expert, Ryan Kelly?
you got anything planned for this week, interview wise?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
I got a few things I'm looking at. This has just been really kind of a crazy week for a lot of different reasons, but I got some ideas on some people that I'm looking forward to trying to talk to here soon. And of course, we'll always have fun with them. What about you? What are you looking at?
I got a few ideas in mind for this weekend show. We do have up online right now. You have the end of the year interview with Polo. End
Did
of
he bring
year.
the car back?
He brought the car back.
Good.
Yeah,
And one
he
thing-
said Jamie showed up with 2 big dudes and told him that he needed to give it back. So
And
they weren't able to work anything out. So Polo's back in LA, and the car is back at the lot at
That's a good
Munganess Holton
spot for
Toyota. But I have interviews up with Matt Seebeck, who is the new Chief Experience Officer.
Now, what
with
is a
St.
chief
Louis.
experience officer?
He is going to make sure that the fans and everybody, that the fans get the best experience possible with the
Now,
St.
his
Louis
experience
City
and
SC.
excitement, or what experience is what?
He has gone. You listen to the interview, and we talk
I
about
got
how
it
he
on
has
my list
gone
of
all
things to
about
do.
the how he's
So
gone.
he's
and he's
sampled
looked
every
in,
place.
he's gone around and he's
That's
looked
good.
into everything, different sports too, with his experience with the Blues and the Cardinals, and found out what the St. Louis fans will want out of their MLS team. And then I had Kevin Wheeler on as well.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so had him
Glad
on
he's
and
back.
talked with him, and that one was cut short because I was getting texts from your producer over there at KMOX that Kevin had to go and do an interview with Tony Gwynn Jr. at the time. So, yeah, so we'll circle
Well, at least
back
he knows where the paycheck comes from.
Yeah. And when the producer's texting me and telling me I got to wrap it up, I knew I had to wrap it up when I did. So we got some things in mind for this weekend coming up on Weekend Joe. That's going to wrap it up from us here at Munganass St. Louis Acura. 13720 Manchester Road is where you can find them. The beautiful showroom they have out here in the lot that is overflowing with cars. October deals are here at Munganass St. Louis Acura. Come on by and check them out. That is Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. You've been watching and listening to Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com.